Hello and welcome to topic 4. Now that we've got a lot of our basic skills out of the way and we've thought about how to do present value calculations, we understand discounting, we understand how to think about forecasting numbers and how to use that to come up with valuations from the external user's perspective. How do we decide how to invest in shares or bonds? And because these are the things that investors will be looking at, the instruments that you issue to fund your business. So now let's look at using some of these same techniques, but internally. When you've got a bunch of choices in order to decide between a bunch of projects, and remember, a project is any decision that you can make. When you're making decisions that have financial implications, you need to make sure that those decisions are made rationally and in the best interests of the business. In other words, increasing its long-term wealth, the owner's long-term wealth. So let's get into it. Let's just start with a brief introduction. And mind you, just something about these dodgy PowerPoint backdrops from UTS. They look all fantastic, don't they? They look like students working hard. These are all staff. They just went around and decided to take pictures of some of the admin staff. When you know the people, it looks a bit dodgy. Anyway, let's get into it. So what we're going to do first is just basically introduce where we're going and what we're talking about before getting stuck into some of the hard and fast details, accounting rate of return and so forth. So firstly, we need to think about what the key financial decisions are that we're going to be making. Now, when we tend to make decisions, we make decisions externally about investing into a business. And so you need to be aware of what decision-making processes investors will be going through in deciding whether to finance your business. But on the inside, you then need to know, well, okay, I've got these limited resources. How do I deploy these resources in a way that best maximizes wealth, best maximizes return to me and to the other investors? So we're going to use the financial mathematics tools that we've already encountered to look at this. Look, I feel a little bit guilty about what we're going to talk about in this topic, mainly because we're going to look at a number of techniques. And I'm actually going to tell you that many of these techniques aren't too good. But as you will see from some evidence I show you later, the reason we need to discuss these techniques is many people use them. So you need to be aware of what they are, even though they might not all be the best way of making decisions. Okay, so if we're looking externally, we're looking to value shares or options. We're predicting cash flows and we're feeding that into the valuation process. We're doing exactly the same internally. So, it comes down to the basics. Work out what your cash flows are. Use time value of money techniques to determine a present value of those cash flows and make a comparison. And that's basically all it comes down to. So by the time we finish this unit, this topic, you're going to understand all these different methods. And hopefully you'll get a feeling for why net present value is the best method. Even though internal rate of return is just a version of net present value, there is a subtle difference that means that you should really be using net present value instead of internal rate of return. Okay, so we're going to look at a few others. All right, so that's basically where we're going. I don't need to read through these slides. Basically, the investment decision is important, right? In making a decision to invest, you need to weigh the benefits that you're going to get out of it against the costs. And we know that net present value does that, right? We're incorporating the cash outflows, we're incorporating the cash inflows, and we're coming up with a net present value that says, does this project add to the value of the business? Okay, so we wouldn't need to talk about this if there weren't scarce resources, of course. If resources were not scarce, we could do anything we wanted to. So we are accessing scarce resources and we are basically making what is termed a capital rationing decision. We have a limited amount of capital that we need to deploy in order to get some business outcomes. Okay, so we're going to make these decisions sensibly if we can anticipate what the cash flows are, discount them correctly, and turn them into a present value that allows us to A, answer whether a business is adding value. Does it have a positive net present value? And B, is its net present value better than the one of another project? Which one do I take? Obviously the one with the higher. Of course, bear in mind, of course, there might be non-financial reasons why you might take another project, loss leading, etc. So this is only looking at the financial part. There may be a reason why you make sacrifices now that will have different unquantifiable payoffs, essentially buying a lottery ticket later on. Okay, so the methods that we're going to use, we're going to look at accounting rate of return, the payback period, including a sort of net present value-ish payback period called discounted payback, net present value, internal rate of return, and something called the profitability index. Okay, so that's where we're going. And we're basically, hopefully, I'm going to come up with an answer that says, hey, which one's best? Hopefully net present value is best. Okay, all right, so now to move on to part B.